Hello all, and welcome to the Rails board meeting. This is Friday, January 23rd, 2026, and I'm Gwen Gregory, President of the Rails board. I call this meeting to order at 1 p.m. Stacy, will you please call roll?
Monica Collicott. Jean Carroll. Here. Jennifer Kutchell.
Here.
Megan Gove.
Here.
Gwen Gregory.
Here.
Ron Callahan.
Here.
Jennifer Hovanek.
Here.
Amanda Kowalski.
Here.
Rob Parks.
Here.
Emily Porter. Carolyn Sennett. Here. Alex Fantina.
Here.
Karen Wojcik.
Here.
Yolanda Goldberg. And Catherine Yanikowski.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. We will handle guests and public comments at the same time. Let's start with guests and public comments in Burr Ridge.
Monica Harris, Rails.
Sharon Swanson, Rails. Layla Heath, Rails. Stacey Palmisano, Rails.
Dan Bostrom Rails.
Lauren Nemeth, Rails.
Ann Slaughter, Rails. Ann Beam, Rails.
John Rails. Joe Philippek Rails.
Are there any guests and public comments in East Peoria?
Nope.
Thank you. Stacy, will you read the guest names via Zoom?
Jessica Silva, Kate Niehoff, Liz Toft, Mark Hatch, and Sam Daly, and Ryan Hebel.
Thank you. Are there any public comments from any Zoom participants?
There are no public comments from Zoom participants.
Stacy, did you receive any public comments via email?
I did not receive any comments via email.
Thank you. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to move any item to the regular agenda for further discussion?
A possible correction with the minutes of the November board meeting. I believe it's a trivial matter, but I believe I was I voted for the consent agenda. It should be listed as voting for the consent agenda at that November meeting. This is Ron Hollian.
All right, thank you, Ron. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
So move. Rob Parks. I'll second.
All right, so moved by Rob and seconded by Megan. Stacy, will you please call roll?
Jean Carroll.
Yes.
Jennifer Kutchell.
Yes.
Megan Gove.
Yes.
Gwen Gregory.
Yes.
Ron Callahan.
Yes.
Jennifer Hovanek.
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski.
Yes.
Rob Parks.
Yes.
Emily Porter. Carolyn Sennett. Yes. Alex Fantina.
Yes.
Karen Wojcik.
Yes.
Catherine Yanikowski.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is Sharon with the Rails single audit report, followed by the financial report.
And I get introduced for both reports at the same time.
Yes, so saving time.
So I have good news. Our 2025 single audit report has been finalized. The report's normally completed and ready to be accepted in the same motion as our annual financial report that's presented as a part of your. There was a delay in the issuance of the final guidance from the Office of Budget and Management that was exacerbated by the government shutdown, but fortunately that final guidance was.
Sharon, this is Rob. You're cutting out.
I'm so sorry. I don't have a microphone close to me. Monica just remedied that. I will recap. So our 2025 single audit has been finalized. It's great news. It's normally ready and finalized and ready to be accepted at the same meeting in September as your annual financial report. There was a delay in the issuance of this report this year because the Office of Budget and Management had not released their final guidance. And this was exacerbated by the government shutdown. So just right after Thanksgiving, from what I understand, that final guidance was issued with few to no changes. So our auditor was able to basically sign off on the report and date what you had seen at your September meeting in draft format. So you were all emailed a copy of this report, and hard copies are available here in Burr Ridge, and a hard copy was also mailed to East Peoria. They are available on the side table if you want them. As I said, final signed dated version of what you had seen earlier, no changes. Our audit partner had gone over this at our September meeting with you all, but just a quick review of what he'd shared. This is a report that is part of compliance measures because we do receive some federal funding. And it's just to make sure that we are expending those funds according to federal guidelines, and we're following accounting procedures as per federal guidelines. We received a clean opinion with no findings and no questions cost, and I look forward to questions and comments that you have about the report. Okay, this is an action item, so I am requesting that the board formally accept the report. I'm not sure if we want to do that prior to my financial report or, okay.
Well, can I have a motion and a second to accept the FY 2025 rail single audit?
So moved. Amanda?
Second. Stacy, will you please call the roll?
Jean Carroll.
Yes.
Jennifer Cutchell.
Yes.
Megan Gove.
Yes.
Gwen Gregory.
Yes.
Ron Hallahan.
Yes.
Jennifer Hovanek.
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski.
Yes.
Rob Parks.
Yes.
Mike Porter. Carolyn Sennett.
Yes.
Alex Vancina.
Yes.
Karen Wojtek.
Yes.
Catherine Kuzensky.
Yes. Next, we will hear from Sharon again with the financial report.
Hey, so now on to the monthly things, or should I say 2 months worth of reports, since we did not have a December meeting. So I do beg your forgiveness early on because there are a few things that happen over these 2 months. So I will take a bit more of your time today. And again, beg your forgiveness for that, but you'll find November and December in your packet. Reports for both the December 31st general fund unassigned cash and investment balance. And I'll mostly focus on December since that is the most recent month that we're reporting on, but I will touch on a few things that happened in November in this report. So that general fund cash, unassigned cash and investment balance as of December 31st was approximately 28.5 million. This would fund 24.2 months of budgeted fiscal year 2026 operations. So we're still over that two-year coverage mark. General fund revenues through December were a little over 13.5 million, and these were over $350,000 above budget. This is primarily due to greater than anticipated participation in the EBSCO group purchase, as well as interest rates on Rails accounts that continue to remain higher than the 3.5% that we had budgeted. So great news all the way around. The Federal Reserve did meet in December, and for the third consecutive time in a row, they did lower interest rates 1/4 percentage point, as we all know. This moved the current target federal borrowing rate to between 3.5% and 3.75%. Also during December, Rails purchased 5 CDs to replace those 5 CDs that had matured earlier in calendar year 2025. We'd waited to reinvest these funds until the assessment of our capital needs and that transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund had been completed. In addition to these investments, Rails did also transfer $200,000 from the money market account at PMA, that is, well, now PTMA, that is a part of that investment program. So we have to have that separate account to deposit interest that we earn on those CDs into. So this $200,000 we transferred from that money market account to the money market account at Hinsdale Bank and Trust to take advantage of those slightly higher interest rates on that account. It represents a portion of that interest income earned on those CD investments, and before that, the Treasury bonds that we had with PMA over the past 4 years of that program. Rails also disposed of 8 has disposed of 8 decommissioned vehicles during fiscal year 2026 so far for a total of $15,905 in profits between what we've received for recycling and what we've sold them to private individuals for. Rails' general fund expenditures through December were just over $10.4 million, and these were nearly $1.65 million above budget. This was primarily due to that $1.85 million transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund because it does show up as an expenditure in the general fund. In addition, contractual services expenditures were above budget. This was from timing differences between budgeted and actual program expenditures and reimbursements for Rails' work on the Cook County Digital Equity Grant. Pilot grants for that program will be awarded and expended in February. So very, very soon we will do the first pilot round of grants for that program. Did I see a question? Oh, sorry. The new platform fee for the eRead Illinois program was also paid early in December, and Rails had the opportunity as well to purchase 364 high-demand perpetually licensed titles to permanently add to the eRead Illinois collection. It was the first time that we had that opportunity, and it was something that we could not pass up. We also had above budget library materials expenditures from temporary timing differences between budgeted and actual group purchases. That always happens because renewals vary over the years, and some renewals are being aligned to common renewal dates. These above budget expenditures were partially offset by below budget personnel expenditures. We had the normal hiring delays for positions that were open at the beginning of the year or became open during the year. We also had blended increases for the health, dental, vision, and workers' compensation insurances that took effect this month for the current calendar year. And these were partially offset by additional needs beyond what we had expected for temporary help for both East Peoria and the Bolingbrook delivery operations. We also had below budget travel and continuing education expenditures. These are just timing differences between budget and actual, as well as some changes in plans and conflicts for staff. We also had below budget vehicle expenditures, primarily from fuel. So fuel prices fell to an average of $2.66 per gallon in December, in comparison to the $3.14 per gallon that we had budgeted. We also had below budget professional services expenditures, primarily from projects that we haven't yet started, including the rail strategic planning process that will require a consultant to be on board and some consulting expenditures. So at the end of November, Rails did receive, and you'll see in your reports, as well as the check register report, that Rails received the full amount for the Cook County Digital Equity Cook County Digital Navigator Network grant. Sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied. There are many, many words that are a part of that title. So this amount was dispersed in error by the county, and it was returned to Cook County in December, and we did receive the corrected reimbursement for expenditures incurred through December. It was $12,632. It was received early in January. So that's all been straightened out, and we have an improved process. We are the first to pilot this grant for the county, and it's being built as we work through the process. So I did also want to mention some capital projects fund activity during November and December. So Rails did pay for a small additional component for the key fob system that's being installed at our Rockford facility. We also made the final payment for the new executive assistance workstation that you can see here in Burr Ridge. And we also replaced the baseboard heaters in the outer offices at Burr Ridge. This replacement happened as a part of an assessment that Rails had performed early in fiscal year 2026. We had an assessment performed at the precast panels because we've noticed some shifting. The assessment costs were paid in early December and were paid from the capital projects fund as well. I did want to give a short rate update since we have now received all of our new rates for our insurances and IMRF and other things for the new calendar year. So our unemployment rate increased from 2.25% to 2.65%. This is due to the past 3 years claims history, as well as our COLA increases and increased salaries, and therefore increase our unemployment insurance. Rails incorporated a blended 2.5% rate into the budget, which anticipated these increases. So we should be covered budgetarily for that increase. Our IMRF employer contribution rate was already great at 0.79% and has remained at 0.79%, which is great news. Our health insurance premiums increased 14% for our PPO plan, 16% for our high deductible health plan with HSA, and 10% for our HMO plan. The increases were due to claims experience and industry-wide increases in drug and service cost. The PPO dental plan premiums increased 11.15%, also due to claims experience. Increases were anticipated in our budget, but these final increases, which incorporated a few more months of our cooperative that we participate in, their claims experience, they did come in a bit higher than we had anticipated, so we should be fairly close to budget or slightly over budget for these costs at the end of the fiscal year. And good news on our property and casualty insurance. We participate in LIRA, one of the library insurance cooperative in the state that brokers property and casualty insurance. And we had an overall premium rate increase of 3.3%. We had anticipated 7%. So this is great news. And that pretty much wraps up everything that I had for you all. Do you have any comments, questions, anything I didn't cover?
All right, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Moving on to the reports. Report from the Rails president. I have no report at this time. So next on the agenda are the Rails board committee reports. Are there any additions or questions on the committee reports included in the packet? Nope. Okay, moving on to the Rails report with Monica.
Thank you, Gwen. Good afternoon, all. I do have an update that I wanted to give you in addition to the information that was included in your Rails report, because ISLAC, which is the Illinois State Library's advisory committee, did meet yesterday. So I have updates that are related to that. So part of the agenda included shared information about an upcoming survey that will be received by libraries of all types. There will be a draft of a new application for security grants. As you all remember, security grants were added to a list of eligible grants that will be given by the Illinois State Library. There will be grants available for application for up to $100,000. It's primarily focused on technology needs, but they are including some other information, including training and perhaps things like communication, emergency plan development. So we're looking forward to that, but it was nice to see that as part of the committee. There was also a review of progress related to IRIS, which is the database, statewide databases that are provided by the Illinois State Library, some discussion about the school district grants as well. There was also an update related to federal funding and IMLS, where Greg McCormick shared that they are expecting that IMLS should be funded for fiscal year 2027 by the House as soon as next week. So that is great news, especially compared to where we were this time last year. So we are looking forward to hearing more on that, but I wanted to make sure that that was shared with you. That does include a slight increase for the Grants to States program, which is the part of that funding that is received by the Illinois State Library in addition to other states. We also received news that we are expecting to have the Rails and Heartland to be part of a meeting that the Illinois State Library is going to commission related to the unserved. This is the first time we've had a meeting like that in quite some time. So we're really looking forward to the possibilities of discussion there, and especially looking at the ideas of the issues of unserved across Illinois and what potential solutions through administrative rule could be. So looking forward to that conversation, and we will be sure to report back on that as we know more. In terms of what was included in your report, I wanted to encourage encourage you all, if you haven't, to take a look at that Rails 2025 year in review video that we do each December. Our team puts a lot of work into making sure that we're covering a lot of the highlights of the year and able to share that. So it's a great way to kind of encapsulate the things that this board, our staff, work on behalf of our membership throughout the year. I also wanted to offer some additional federal funding and IMLS updates that have happened since we last met, in November. So on November 21st, a federal judge in Rhode Island held that the Trump administration's efforts to dismantle the Institute of Museum and Library Services and several other federal agencies via executive order was illegal and unconstitutional. This decision was the result of the lawsuit that came from 21 state attorney generals, including Illinois' own Kwame Raoul. The judge also denied the government's motion for summary judgment and a motion for the judge to reconsider his prior preliminary injunction in this case. So what that means is that this can't come back to them. So it's now been decided that IMLS and other agencies cannot be ended just by executive order. On December 3rd, IMLS announced that it was restoring all federal grants that had been terminated in the wake of the March 14th Trump executive order. So those have all now presumably gone back. Those were in various states of potential progress because of the time that has elapsed. So it's not entirely perfect news, but it's better to see those grants having been restored. As you all recall, there was a 43-day government shutdown in November that was the result of Congress agreeing to continue temporarily funding some of the programs at last year's levels. As we had noted in the past, Congress does need to pass 9 spending bills or face another shutdown on February 1st, but the news that we heard yesterday leaves us hopeful that that will move forward. And then also on January 13th, IMLS did open its federal 2026 grant funding cycle. Institutions are encouraged to apply for those programs by March 13th. I would say if you are interested in applying, take a look at the language as it has changed significantly since the last time those grants were offered. We also wanted to share that the American Library Association is having a National Library Legislative Day in Washington, D.C. This is the first time in quite a few years that they are approaching it in this way. There's a group of upwards of 250 people from across the country that will be attending those. I will be attending, as will Rails board member Emily Porter and Stephanie Nissen, who serves on our Rails Advocacy Committee. We know all those folks have been accepted to attend. I imagine there will also be some other folks from Illinois attending. And so we're looking forward to seeing a full list of who those people will be. And we will report back on that experience, hopefully, if not next month, the month after. In terms of Illinois legislative updates, you know that there are 4 main things that have been identified by the Illinois Library Association's executive board as being priorities for this year. There is one bill that has been issued that we know of so far in relation to that. That's House Bill 4261. And that bill is in response to the request to increase library system area and per capita grants, public per capita and school district grants by 20%. That 20% is to reflect inflation that has happened since the last time that those grants were raised. The library system area and per capita grant, as you all know, is the grant that funds Rails and the systems. So that is included along with per capita and school district grants, which between those 2 grants cover every public and school library in the state. So this is very significant if this was to move through. The other 3 priorities are to require public library trustee training, to offer open educational resource or OER funding, and making ebooks equitable and accessible, all items that were touched on at the Illinois Library Association's legislative meetups. And we expect that we will see bills, most bills will come in by February, and so we'll have more to report in by then. As you heard Sharon talk about, the Cook County Digital Navigator Network launched their mini pilot. This is very exciting and the first time that we've gone through this process. This will allow for a small number of libraries to receive a limited amount of funding. And then what we learn from that process will go into creating a larger program for Cook County. What we hope to learn from Cook County, we hope to be able to continue to expand even further throughout Illinois and perhaps create a model that can be used nationally. So really excited for this partnership with Cook County. They have been very excellent partners. And Ann Slutter has really been leading a lot of those efforts, and we're really pleased with the direction that these things are going and are appreciative to so many Rails staff that are working on this project. I also wanted to make sure that you were aware and invite you to our upcoming Rails member update that's happening on February 11th. We are very excited to welcome the brand new American Library Association Executive Director, Dan Montgomery, to the Rails member update. We are accepting questions in advance. So if you have questions you'd like to ask, please submit them via the form. And in addition to Dan Montgomery, we will have Jennifer Drinka and Jennifer Norris of the Antioch Public Library there to speak on the American with Disabilities Act Title II web accessibility and what libraries need to know before 2026 deadlines. The final presentation will be from Bree Kirsch, who is Associate Librarian at Miami University, and she will present on the Illinois Library's AI Ambassador Program. We're really excited to open that up as well. We have also had a lot of efforts related to ebook advocacy that have been happening. You're going to hear more about the Palace Project later from Layla and Anna, but they have also been very involved with some of these ebook advocacy efforts that are happening throughout the state. So I wanted to shout them out as well. The Illinois Library Association's Public Policy Committee has a special subcommittee that's specifically about ebooks and potential ebook legislation. There's been a lot of work that went into that, including any of you that were able to attend the Illinois Library Association's legislative meetups that happened in December. There was a big insert in the middle. That was work that was done by Anna and Ola from our communications team, which we were really excited to see in such a clear manner. I think it really helped our legislators to understand the issue in a way that maybe they've had a harder time understanding before. So that was really positive, and we expect to see some items from that piece that will be available for social media and able to share so that that message can get out even further. Yes,
Question
of
about that
course, yes.
advocacy part of your document. It says that, you guys are going to meet with a subcommittee monthly to pursue avenues for potential legislation that reflects what has passed in Connecticut.
Yes.
But what has passed in Connecticut?
Great question. So the Connecticut, I want to say about 6 to 8 months ago, somewhere in there, passed a bill that essentially says that libraries should be available to have kind of fair and reputable terms when it comes to ebook pricing. And that as a state, unless those pricing, what they determine to be fair and reputable, are met, no library in the state will be able to purchase ebooks directly from.
And that passed in Connecticut?
Passed with what's called a trigger clause, which means that another state of similar size or larger must also pass similar legislation in order for it to go through. So, and if I am not getting any of this right, please jump in. But so what that allows for is if another state that's of a similar size passes that is 2 states, and there are several states with potential ebook laws that are on the books or trying to go through the process. So New Jersey was one of them. I know DC has recently had Washington, DC, which would not qualify for the trigger piece, but it has some very interesting things that have happened from ebooks on that side. There's also Hawaii and Maine, I believe, Massachusetts. So they're
Be too big, wouldn't it?
well, bigger is okay. It's as long as it's not smaller.
Oh, okay.
But Illinois obviously is part of that conversation, and there is a national group that meets monthly to kind of discuss what's happening in different states. eBooks for All founder Kyle Courtney, who works in the copyright section of Harvard Law, has been really integral in looking at all these individual state laws and how they might work with a potential ebook law and helping to craft those and then work with the powers that be to move those forward.
Is there a deadline for this trigger clause? We can't be forever,
Yeah, that's a good question. I assume there must be some timeline on that, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. Yeah, we can try and find that out, Karen.
Well, I just wondered, is this something that you only have a couple months left to get, before you lose it and then you have to start all over again with.
Not heard that level of urgency during our meeting, so I don't think it's anything really pressing, but a good question in terms of if there is an ultimate time limit for sure. Great. No. Great question.
So I don't think it's required to have a time limit on it. I think the trigger clause on abortion laws were on the books for many years in some states before the Supreme Court decision. And so that outlawed abortions in those states.
That's a great insight, actually. Thank you so much, Robert. That's really makes a lot of sense as it relates to this too.
And I want to compliment the staff on the development of the handout piece that was used about ebooks for the legislative meetings. I was not able to attend the one in Bloomington, but we've had some discussion about this at our library, but this encapsulates it. So I'm taking this handout to the library board meeting next Tuesday and sharing it because I think it just puts it in perspective for the other trustees. So I would
Thank you
encourage
so much.
everybody to share this with their trustees.
I think it really does such a great job of explaining it either to a layperson or a decision maker. And it's important for folks to remember, especially elected officials, that these are tax dollars that we're talking about. And so when you really start to see the disparity between how a consumer pays for ebooks and how libraries pay for ebooks, I think it really does make it very clear why this is an issue. Again, thank you for the great work that you have done. Just in terms of the top 3 things for you all to note as you're having conversations around the state. Of course, the annual certification piece has kicked off. All libraries are very aware of that certification requirement, but I especially want to compliment our administrative staff here at Rails who do a ton of work to make sure that that certification process moves forward and that we get all the information that's needed. We also want to say big congrats to our Can't Shelve This podcast team. Jeanette Jarucki and Ola Gronsky work on that along with Leah Gregory, who works at the Illinois Heartland Library System. They got a honorable mention from the Library Marketing and Communications Group, and Ola was able to be there and accept her award for that great work that they're doing, which was really exciting. And then if you have not had an opportunity to see the 2025 delivery wrapped stats that were shared through our social media at the end of December, I encourage you to do so. We did this for the first time last year, and it was really like an opportunity to share the wonderful stats of how much work goes from our delivery department, how materials move around the state, and it is really stunning. And I think people love to see that in black and white and really see just exactly the work that our delivery team is doing. So I wanted to thank them for that work and also thank our communications team for making it so easy for people to see how exciting that work is. So that is my Rails report. I'd like to open up to any further questions or comments that you all have to ask or share. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Monica. Next, Ann Slaughter will present the Service of the Month report on LSAP services.
All right, well, so I have a document in your packet about this, as well as lots more information on these slides about our LSAPs. So first question, what is an LSAP? It is a term that's unique to Illinois. We're kind of stuck with it. It's in the administrative code, stands for Local Library System Automation Program, and is defined in the code as an integrated library system open to membership by full library system members of all types, developed by or receiving financial or in-kind support from a library system. It's essentially a library consortium, the plural of which is consortia, also known in many states as a network, but in kind of laypersons or closer to laypersons terms, it's a group of libraries that are leveraging economies of scale like we are so good at in library systems to share expensive mission critical library catalog software, which provides their patrons with access to their online catalog and interlibrary loan. The libraries share their collections with each other. If you're not as familiar with library catalog software, it does, it kind of provides support and like the backbone for quite a few areas of library service, frontline circulation, cataloging, collection management kinds of functions, online catalog and access for patrons, patron data, lots of things. So the 6 LSAP organizations that we have within the Rails service area, they're all independent organizations. I think all of them are officially Illinois intergovernmental instrumentalities formed by intergovernmental agreements with each other. And we at Rails provide support to them that partially offsets the cost of their operations. The Rails board does have its own LSAP definition that essentially kind of expands upon a bit and explicates this definition that's in the administrative code. So, like I said, this is 6 organizations. They're all very different from each other. Across our whole service area, they serve about 1/3 of Rails members. We have decades of history between our organizations. They're very much kind of inextricable from library system history in general. Lots of interconnections, currently with Rails, with each other. So I'm going to cover a lot of ground and start with kind of the
So can I
30,000.
interrupt?
Yes.
So what are the 2/3 who are not part of an LSAP? What do they do?
So I actually have a slide that kind of outlines
Okay.
the big picture of where it all stands in a few moments. But yeah, it's not the only way that libraries have catalog software. So hopefully we'll be able to clarify that for you, but definitely feel free to jump in at that point if you have questions. So our missions are central to each other's existence across Rails and the LSAPs. Rails is charged with ensuring sustainable, equitable resource sharing opportunities for our members. Our member libraries meet system expectations by sharing their resources with each other. And, of course, our delivery service facilitates all this high volume resource sharing that the LSAPs themselves are doing. So our support for LSAPs is mission critical to, our own existence. And that is, that shows up in Illinois law, in the Library System Act, with our charge to support resource sharing. System membership kind of defines ILLINET, which is, the network of all of our system libraries. The foundation for our resource sharing kind of undergirds LSAP membership requirements, and encouraging and supporting LSAP participation by member libraries is one of the core standards for system services outlined in the administrative code. So like I said, there are a lot of decades of history between LSAPs and library systems. When online catalogs first became a thing and libraries were beginning to transition from card catalogs, library systems were encouraged to start these shared catalogs. So many of the LSAPs today began as departments within regional library systems. Since then, there have been a lot of consortial mergers. There were several independent consortia that either formed independently of library systems, though often with some form of financial assistance from library systems, or groups have split off from each other, have rejoined with each other over the years. There's lots of history, and that still kind of shows up in various ways today. So a lot of background. When the Rails, the 5 predecessor systems merged to form Rails, during the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, the cash flow crisis that followed in the state, the LSAPs that weren't already independent organizations made moves to form their own organizations, so they kind of broke off from library systems organizationally so that their existence wasn't dependent on the existence of a library system, which is an important piece of history there, and how we got to where we are today, which is, having the 6 separate LSAPs. They're their own organizations. They make their own decisions. They're governed by their members. So our support for LSAPs also shows up in our mission. You know, they're connecting libraries alongside us. We share, their members are our members. So you can see specifically, you know, this call out in the goal 1, objective 4, identifying and supporting affordable shared catalog solutions. But our work with the LSAPs kind of transcends this one item. So getting kind of closer into the work we actually do with the LSAPs day to day, there is a board committee that is more broadly the consortia committee, which has members, representatives from each of the 6 LSAPs. I'll get into a little more who they are. Plus CARLI, the statewide academic library consortium, which has a different kind of organizational and funding model as a part of the UIUC, or the University of Illinois system. But the consortia committee is that kind of formalized governance level opportunity for the consortia in our service area to come together and give us feedback on helping to improve our services and relationships with each other, find opportunities for collaboration. So what do the LSAPs themselves actually do? You know, big picture, they provide library catalog software, often referred to most commonly probably as an ILS or an integrated library system, although library management system, LMS, has also become more popular just as software evolves. And that software manages circulation, patron data, library collections, a lot of core library operational activities. And it allows libraries to share their collections with each other while sharing the costs of this software that is generally extremely expensive and very complex to administer and to maintain, which, you know, helps kind of, the libraries are pooling their resources to, you know, to come together and support the administration and procurement of this software, which also gives them kind of increased negotiating and buying power than they would have if they were just a single institution. You can see in the packet document how widely the sizes and staffing levels of these groups are distributed. So the services that they provide also vary. You know, there's this core set of services based around providing the ILS software, but some of the groups also provide additional services like centralized cataloging, training for their members, some consulting services, sometimes additional software that integrates with the catalog, like mobile apps or databases. You know, Layla and her team work very closely with them on a lot of our group purchases, and they have their own user groups and committees. Libraries pay annual fees to participate in LSAPs. That is their primary source of revenue, and they are governed by their members as well. So Rob, this sort of gets at the question that you were asking earlier. Automation is another very library specific word that is, also a little dated, but they're, I'm not sure that there's like another more modern word that describes it, but automation is that, using a catalog software, having an online catalog as opposed to using a card catalog. So the management of your collection and circulation is automated by this software. So 32% of Rails member libraries are in LSAPs. That's 80% of our public library members. And then you can see how it breaks down more broadly. 37% of our members are in consortia, which includes the 62 academic libraries that are members of Rails that are part of the CARLI and their iShare consortium. So that is one way that a library has its catalog, is through these consortial groups. Then there are libraries that maintain their own catalogs, and we refer to those as standalone libraries. We also still have some non-automated libraries. Those libraries, there aren't very many of them anymore, but those libraries might be using maybe some local software that is not quite as robustly functional as a modern interlibrary or integrated library system software, or they are just using a card catalog, which is one of the ways we direct our support to them, which I will get into. So the membership in each of the groups is laid out here. I'm not, we don't have time to get into detail about like the characteristics of each of these groups, but you can see that they range in size from 6 to 130 member libraries. Their membership is vastly public oriented, although most of them are multi-type. And Rock River Library Consortium, which is centered around the Sterling area, has the distinction of being a majority school library members. So this is the geographical breakdown of their service areas as a shot from our resource sharing map. So each color on this map represents the public library service areas for each of the LSAPs. So they cover the whole Rails service area. Prairie Cat and RSA are the red and green ones, respectively. And then, it gets a little squished together in the suburbs. But yeah, this is the geographical breakdown, and you can use our resource sharing map to zoom in and out and to see them in different ways. So the ways that we at Rails support LSAPs, and I'm going to spend more time talking about the financial support that we provide. We have 2 grant programs that support their operations and membership growth that I'll explain. And like I mentioned, as with Layla's team, we also have quite a few close partnerships, ongoing collaborations. They are our colleagues in supporting libraries from this like statewide regional perspective. So a lot of collaborations and close collegial relationships. Support for LSAPs from Rails, from library systems, has evolved as the landscape has evolved. The 2 grant programs that we have now and the way that that our support is funneled through those looks very different than the 4 entirely different contracts that Rails had with at the time only 4 LSAPs that were formed or that existed at the time that Rails supported, and there were multiple independent consortia. I think that there were like 9 or 11 in the Rails service area when I started at Rails 12 years ago, and so now we have the 6. They're all LSAPs. That's like all to that story that we have time for today, but lots of evolution over time, and we've worked towards something that is a lot more kind of uniform and explainable across the board. So the LSAP support grant, I did talk about at a previous meeting. I think it was September, perhaps, but that is our largest in terms of dollar amount grant program that supports the LSAPs. It is their operational support intended to enhance their services, improve their operations, increase their financial sustainability, and they use those funds in ways that are appropriate to their organization and their needs. So we budget $2.25 million for that annually in the Rails budget. That is allocated to each of the 6 LSAPs via a standardized formula that is distributed in quarterly payments to each one of them through their contractual services line. For 2 of the LSAPs, Prairie Cat and RSA, we also provide some services to them. You'll see more detail on our support to RSA a little later in the meeting. Our finance team provides excellent service that they get rave, just the Craig had an RSA rave about their the quality and helpfulness of their financial services. So we each year we calculate the costs to Rails of providing those services and deduct those costs from their allocations. So, you know, that's just kind of reflected throughout the Rails operating expenditures. We do announce the awards in time for the LSAPs to incorporate them into their budgets, which is prior to the time that Rails develops our own budget. So our awards are announced in October of each year for the fiscal year, you know, that's like a year ahead. So it's conditioned on the availability of funding and gets incorporated into the Rails budget when we get to that point. They submit reports to us each year on July 31st. So that usually shows up in the August board packet for you all to review. But in this month's board packet, you have the consortial reports that we assemble each quarter for the consortia committee meeting. So you'll see those every quarter. As a part of the application for the support grant, we collect a lot of data that we have called the Railcar project, a little bit of a reverse engineered acronym. We collect a lot of data from them, some of which this Zillane report was developed for the state library many years ago and gives us all a lot of baseline data. And we've added some that, you know, just kind of help present a fuller picture of what we know about the LSAPs, how they compare to each other. We use a lot of that data in the formula that allocates the funds. And, you know, it also is useful more broadly to members looking at, you know, the affordability and services across the LSAPs that they might be assessing for their own participation. You know, we can look at the data Rails wide. LSAPs can look at it, compare themselves with each other. There are 2 dashboards of that data linked on the Rails data analysis pulse page on our website. The other grant program is the Catalog Membership Grant. This grant generally goes directly to member libraries. It supports the membership growth of LSAPs and removes as many of the financial barriers to entry as we can for them. There are a lot of one-time expenses required to join an LSAP. Most of that goes to the vendor, the software vendor, for adding the library's collection and consulting on that project. It's a massive project. And often there are libraries, especially the smaller, less well-resourced libraries, that also need technology equipment and, you know, sometimes cataloging a card catalog, you know, converting that into MARC records to meet kind of the baseline requirements for LSAP participation. So we help them get to that point, you know, without having to do that whole one-time outlay themselves. They work very closely with the LSAP staff on that. You know, because this grant will sometimes go to libraries that are non-automated or using, we call them under-automated, using software that, you know, isn't necessarily sufficient to their needs. We provide them a lot of additional guidance through this program. We usually have 2 application deadlines per year, November 1st and April 15th. So we have one more in this fiscal year. And we budget based on known incoming projects. So the budget varies a little from year to year. And the way that we spend that line doesn't necessarily always, you know, it correspond exactly to the known projects, because libraries are kind of on their own timeline. It could be a really long project. So we do our best to anticipate and meet the needs that we are aware of. So in the past calendar year, in 2025, we gave 7 grants. That line above the final 2 is just the line between fiscal years. So we have given the 2 grants in fiscal 26 and then the previous 5 before that. So that's the activity on this grant program in 2025. Developed this program in October of 2014. Since then, we have given 84 awards. 81 of them have gone to individual libraries, and 3 of them have gone to support the consortial mergers that I referred to earlier. We passed the $2 million mark this past year. Our smallest award in that time was $300. And our largest individual award was almost 82,000. And the consortial mergers ranged, from about 100 to about 300,000. Supporting anywhere from 8 to 19 libraries coming together into one of the LSAPs. That adds up to over 1.7 million residents connected to their library collections and to resource sharing. The smallest community was population served of 770, and the largest thus far is just over 89,000. So these are programs that I oversee, and that happens with a lot of help from Mary Kate Murray on the administrative side. Grant Halter, our data analysis manager, oversees the support formula for the LSAP support grant. And Layla and Brian Smith are part of the review team for the catalog membership grant. So there's a lot of help that goes into making this happen. So any questions?
I have a question. So it sounds like the catalog membership grants are not available to academic libraries that want to join iShare. They're only for the LSAPs that Rails runs.
They are for the LSAPs, yeah, in the Rails service area.
That be anything that would be considered? Because I don't think there is not another, like there isn't a program like this that Carly has.
It's something that we could certainly look into. I think there are additional complexities with the way that, the statewide nature of Carly's membership and iShare membership, the fact that Rails funds have to be used to support libraries in the Rails service area. So there are additional complexities, I think, when it comes to like population served and the geographical locations and then like spread service area of institutions. And the funding that the Carly organization has is also really kind of fundamentally different from the LSAPs.
I think that Carly also has issues with adding new members to iShare, mostly because of Alma itself. There's something with the
No,
licensing.
they've been adding quite a few new members.
It took me like a year to get a quote, and then it was like very cost prohibitive.
Yes, they've been adding many new members.
Well, that's good.
Like there's kind of a line, but they added the city colleges, which was that's a big chunk.
I think they did have a lag in adding members after they migrated to Alma. So there was sort of some demand built up, but they were able to start.
Right, but I think now they've been catching up.
And just for awareness for those who might not know, our sister system, Heartland, is organized very differently when it comes to resource sharing, which is when Ann's talking about the differences for a statewide program like Carly and only for us giving service to those in the Rails service area. It's because in Heartland, there's only one shared catalog and it is administered directly by Heartland. So that's where some of those differences come in. They don't even have something like the catalog membership grant in their program.
So for the non-librarians in the room, what the heck is Alma?
Alma is one of the software platforms commonly used by academic libraries, the ILS software.
I have another question. So I can understand sort of why school libraries are not a part of an LSAP, because I just can understand that. But why, other than size, would a public library not want to be part of an LSAP?
The decision to participate in an LSAP, fundamentally is part of the local control that a public library board has. So it's very specific to the community, to the library organization, and its leadership. So communities will make different decisions about how they feel their own resources are best allocated towards their catalog solution and the ways that they choose to participate in resource sharing. That LSAPs are not the only option for libraries to participate, very freely and generously in resource sharing. A shared catalog helps make it more seamless, as does Find More Illinois. So we do have a lot of standalone libraries that participate in Find More Illinois, which helps to connect, provides an online interface across the collections of all of the participating libraries. So, which is to say that libraries have options and they choose the one that they feel is right for them. And that changes over time too. Our catalog membership grant has actually gone to kind of an increasing number of libraries that have sort of been holdouts on LSAP participation and have come to see the benefits of that. There is sometimes a fear that, a library collection will sort of get cleaned out by everyone else's patrons. The statistics really generally don't bear that out. Libraries with larger collections also tend to be like net borrowers, and which is, there are always going to be exceptions, but they do, there are just kind of different value propositions, I think, when it comes down to it.
I can also speak as someone who worked at a standalone library, that a lot of it when it comes to local control is also about when you're making decisions. If you're a standalone library, you can make a decision and implement something fast. Whereas if you're in a group of 100+ libraries, you have to get everyone to the table, long conversations. So there's definite benefits to being in a consortium, but maybe a library that's used to being more independent, doing their own thing, wouldn't want to give up that level of control.
Be setting policies with 99 other libraries.
Thank you.
What were you going to say, Alex?
I was going to say, I work for a standalone library, and I kind of compare it to a homeowners association in a lot of ways. The association provides a lot of services and amenities that you don't have to contract for or worry about on your own, but you do give up some control. You can't paint your door any color you want. There are certain days you can put your garbage cans out, have to have them back in. So you have to get everybody to agree on some certain baseline rules that maybe that trade-off is worth it to you, maybe it's not, but makes sense for a lot of folks.
That's a great analogy, Alex. Yeah.
I'll just comment, I was shocked and horrified. I did the math that there are about 24 to 25 public libraries in the state that don't, or in Rails that don't have an ILS. I'm really wondering what's going on there, and I want to go help them get on an ILS.
I also just want to comment that I was a member of a consortium that then moved to a different consortium and got a Rails grant to help facilitate all of that. And it was awesome. So, thank you. Years ago now, 2019, but that project took a year or more to actually come to fruition. So I know it's a lot of work, and just know that the libraries on the other end appreciate all of the help, because probably it would never happen without Rails assistance. So,
and that took a lot of work on the front end of that project to come together. So it's a win for everyone that it ended up being awesome.
I'll just throw in there that I worked for three of the libraries that are part of the smallest consortium when Pinnacle started being Pinnacle. A lot of the discussion was about the platform and being able to have a platform that could serve the libraries differently. than the existing ILS that was used, that was multi-type. So it had been adjusted and tinkered with and tweaked, and to the point where when you looked at the original form of that ILS software, it looked completely different than what it had become, so that it could serve the needs, as Amanda was talking about, after all of the people come to the table and the decisions are made. So part of it was that flexibility and the immediacy of being able to make the changes, but some of it was also about just looking at different platforms and, being very interested in having some different capabilities that just simply was not going to be possible or anytime soon with what was being utilized with the former consortia. So
that is a huge factor, a very challenging area. Just thinking about the platforms, the vendors, the market of that software is,
and the pricing.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's certainly my favorite part of being in an LSAP is I don't have to deal with innovative Prairie Cat. So when there's a problem, I'm like, don't look at me. You gotta talk to Prairie Cat. I don't know. So.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you all. Feel free to reach out, if anything else occurs to you. It's a big topic.
Next on the agenda is a report from the Illinois State Library with Liz Toft.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me all right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Monica covered a lot that we went over in the ISLAC meeting yesterday, but I'm just going to give a few highlights. Also, just so you know, I'm Liz Toft. I am the LSTA coordinator at the State Library. I've been in this role since about July, so still pretty fresh. Excuse me. So, as Monica said, it is our understanding that the federal funding for the FY26 Grants to States program is moving forward through Congress, which is a promising sign that things are moving along on track. The deadline for applications for the construction grant has just passed, and we have received 26 total applications. So the review committee will be reviewing the applications soon. The public school districts that are members of the regional library systems were invited to apply for the school district library grant. 92% submitted and were recommended for funding. Of the other 8%, the state library staff called and emailed every district that did not apply. 40 schools are ineligible for the grant. Confirmation that the applicant agency has adopted the ALA Bill of Rights or has a policy in place to prevent book banning is a requirement of every Secretary of State grant program. The number of public school districts that did not comply with this requirement has stayed consistent compared to last year. On this year's application, school districts were required to provide the name of the employee whose primary duty it is to serve as librarian in each building. It's interesting to note that this yielded a higher number of ineligible districts due to not having an employee whose primary duty is to serve as librarian. This could have membership implications as well, and we will be sharing that list with the system staff to investigate further. Even though we use the email and phone number listed on L2 and left messages at phone numbers provided on school district websites, 17 school districts did not respond at all to our inquiry. The school district library grant will be awarded for a minimum of $850 per district, or a formula based on 88.5 cents per student, whichever is greater. As Monica stated, a survey is being emailed to all libraries statewide regarding the Illinois State Library's grants, services, and programs. The entire Secretary of State agency was recently involved in an efficiency study, and a survey of libraries was one of the recommendations. The survey will ask about the importance of ISL-funded services, programs, and grants. This will include grants-funded services provided by the regional library systems, such as delivery, the ILE trustee training portal, cataloging support, and other grant-funded activities. The first round of surveys will be going to academic and special libraries, then public libraries, followed by schools. At ISLAC, concerns were raised regarding contacting the schools in that some of the contacts on L2 may be superintendents that are not having an active role in the execution of the day-to-day of the libraries. For this reason, we will be contacting the person listed on L2 as well as the contact listed for the school district library grants. Lastly, just a reminder that the public library per capita and equalization grant application is due no later than January 30th. As of yesterday, we have received 373 applications. That is currently the news from the Illinois State Library.
Liz, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know when the first round of the survey will go out?
I don't have a definitive date on that. I believe they're hoping to launch it soon. I can look into that and we can let you know.
Okay, I just wanted to point it out because that's the kind of thing that some academic libraries might miss, and we would of course like to
Yes.
encourage fill it out.
I will be sure to ask about that and we will let you know.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Liz? Well, thank you for that report, Liz.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on to new business, first up is Monica and Layla to discuss the Palace project.
And I am going to pass it on to Joe to introduce, who's also been involved.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. We wanted, yes, to provide an update to the Palace project as obviously a platform for eRead Illinois. So it was about 3 months ago, which I know for my eRead colleagues on the other side of the table probably feels like 3 years with the amount of work that has gone on since you last heard us talk about the Palace project, which took place at our October board. And at that time, we were only a couple weeks removed from all of the learning that the Baker and Taylor, of course, were ceasing operations. And we would be forced to transition to a new platform for eRead. And with that selection obviously being the Palace project. Of course, given the uncertainty of the sort of Baker and Taylor wind down timeline, we knew we would have to move at a much more quick pace than we would have liked or preferred, but that compressed timeline was really born out of necessity. Among those necessities, the interest in preserving a collection of over 80,000 titles. So a tremendous amount of work has happened since this board has last met, and continues to happen as part of what is obviously a very significant transition. But I just want to start by really acknowledging what I think should be viewed as a real considerable achievement for Rails to move so quickly and to transition literally hundreds of libraries in a time frame measured in weeks, and all the necessary work involved in both the front end and back end of things to make this collection remain available to so many library users across the state and across our membership. So I really just want to kind of reflect on that. Say that I feel a sense of pride and that we should feel pride for that. While so much credit is owed to the dynamic eRead duo down there in Layla Heath and Anna Beam, this achievement is certainly a product of the work of so many more. Our Rails team, obviously, our communications especially, but many others, our many partners and collaborators across our membership, across the state, and the commitment from the Palace project team at Lyrasis to make this happen for us. It has truly been a collaborative effort that would not have been possible without the efforts of our many stakeholders. Now, with all that being said, there is still plenty left to do. I will say one of the great strengths of our membership is, and I've always believed, and I think we all understand, is that we are multi-type. But as you have probably heard us say in a number of different ways, the complexities that exist, particularly across our academics, and in particular across our K through 12 membership, can present real challenges. You've heard us describe this, for example, in the context of our deals and discounts. And this has certainly been the case for the Palace project as well, as an area And this now is really an area of prioritization and active development to make this platform functional in all the ways that we need it to for the breadth of our membership. So to share just a bit more about that work and just other details about where we are and where we're heading as it relates to Palace Project, I will pass things over to Layla and Anna to share a bit more with you all.
Right. Well, I'll start off by, I just wanted to expand a little bit on this K through 12 piece. We're really at an interesting, exciting, challenging time in this part of the transition to Palace Project with our K through 12s. And, you know, we find with our K through 12s that they bring some interesting pieces into the conversation about scaling for statewide programs. So in my area, I have the 3 statewide programs: Find More, the eContent program, Explore More, which actually is just for publics and community colleges, and then the Deals and Discounts programs. And so those programs are built to be big, which is really fun and really exciting and just like the best mission. But when it comes to the K through 12, there are some challenges. So when we are scaling a program, we're looking for some really important mechanisms to do that. We need clear communication channels. We need data that is related to cost, authentication, implementation needs for the programs and products that we're using. Standardization helps us to administer things quickly, maintain a program and resource. It's obviously easier to do something that has, you know, 4 different permutations than 100. And so that standardization starts to become really important. And then some kind of consolidation. So, you know, it was great that Ann's been talking about the LSAPs. We think of them as our power centers. When we are implementing something big, they're our first phone calls. What do you think? Can you help? They always say yes. They have great insights. But we're making 6 or 7 if it's statewide, or 8 if we're talking to Carly, as opposed to 500 in that instance, 500 individual libraries. So they're able to pull that information for us quickly, get to their members quickly. They've got a lot of that data already there. So in terms of doing implementations to scale, these things start to become really important. So when we look at our K through 12 market, there are just some stark, you know, things that we have to overcome or develop or have in order to do these kinds of large scale programs. Liz very interestingly mentioned, and I'm like, boy, I couldn't have planned that better. It's a challenge that in you know, an academic or a special or a public, we have a director typically, and we have a contact. In the school, it could, as you know, maybe listed as a superintendent. Is there a librarian? Is it a building? Is it a district? Or there are about 100 million different configurations within one district that it could possibly be for a resource or program, and also not necessarily the same even across the different statewide programs. So right off the bat, we have a bit of a, you know, a bit of a barrier to overcome to get to the people that we need to get to. We were talking about the LSAPs, and you saw Ann's number. 45 of our K through 12s are in LSAPs. We have over 2,000 school library buildings. So we have 45 that we can get to through Perry Cat and RSA, and then the rest are basically a listserv or individual reach outs. It starts to become, you know, just a really, it's a big issue. So we don't have some of these crucial contact points to quickly get to folks without massive reach outs. The other thing is the data. What data do we need? And that is not as clear, and we are learning, and, you know, kind of the type of data that we need to implement for the schools. All the library types are different in the data that they need, really. And the schools have a lot of security concerns, and, you know, they just have a different approach than the other 3 library types that needs to be accounted for. And so what is so interesting here, I mean, you know, when you have a need, that's when you have a solution. And so we are starting to build kind of this infrastructure that doesn't exist that we know of in a way that is going to be meaningful. And we hope that we can expand as we're with our other statewides as well. And our K through 12 librarians have just been amazing in their patience, their responses, in kind of guiding us as we're looking at this, because they're all concentrating on their instances, their schools. You know, this bigger landscape is where we start to see what's the same, what's different, how can we make this work? Are there two things that are emerging as important across all, you know, the thousands of buildings that we can work on to do something quick. And so it's just this point in time, I feel like, while it's a challenge, and you know, and part of the reason we're sharing this is also just to let folks know what's happening kind of behind the scenes, because it's a lot to manage and to work with and kind of figure out. It's very fascinating, and you know, we're looking for impactful things. So we've got this challenge and also this opportunity that is just pretty amazing. The Rails team, the Palace Project team, as I mentioned, our K through 12 libraries and leaders. And we reach out to those library leaders that we know of too. Hey, what do you think? They give us a lot of guidance as well. And so we're building this relevant infrastructure that doesn't currently exist. And in addition, these times are our times of connection. And that is really so great. Like, we are just having a lot of conversations out of necessity, but that's where we just learn more. And, you know, you have those conversations, they're questions we may not think to ask, but when we're having the conversation, things come up that start to guide and again, shape something that's going to be really. So that is the kind of synopsis right now of the K through 12 as it relates to Palace and the statewide programs. And we truly appreciate, again, the chance to work with our K through 12 libraries and learn more and build something. So Anne is going to talk more about sort of the details and things that are happening.
Yeah, I'm going to speak a little bit to where those challenges come in, specifically with the Palace project and the eRead Illinois program. So when we started working with Palace, we knew that there was going to be some development work that they needed to do in order to support school library access to the eRead Illinois collection. This was part of our initial discussions with the team and something that we always kind of had in mind when we were working with them. And that development work really focuses on 4 areas specific to schools. One is authentication. So schools have some unique needs when it comes to the way that students log in to school provided resources. Method of access was something that came up, whether it's they're accessing eRead Illinois through a school issued device, a personal device, et cetera. Excuse me. The scoping or content filtering of the collection. The level and need for content filtering can vary from school building to school building, from community to community. There's not really a standard way that our schools have done that in the past. And then privacy protection is the 4th thing. This is pretty standard in Illinois. We've got SOPA, the Student Online Privacy Protection Act, where vendors that work with schools need to sign specific documentation in order to be compliant with SOPA. Palace has done that, but there are some districts that have some additional requirements when it comes to student privacy. So these are all things that you know, Palace we were aware of, and that Palace began the development work on. While they began that development work, the eRead Illinois team, we did some information gathering so that we could kind of plan the most efficient and effective way to roll out the Palace project platform to our school libraries. What we learned through the surveys that we sent out, the conversations that we've had with our school libraries and the reach outs, is that there's not really a consensus when it comes to these 4 factors: the authentication, access, scoping, and to a lesser extent, the privacy. What that means is that there's no way to really prioritize the development of these factors in order to onboard the most libraries, because there's not one combination of things that works for the majority of our schools. There was one piece of feedback we got, though, that came in very loud and clear from our schools, and that was that they wanted access to the eRead Illinois collection as soon as possible. So we are happy to report that we worked with the Palace team to develop a temporary solution that is being implemented this week. I think the final emails went out this morning. And so as of today, all of our eRead Illinois school libraries do have some access to the eRead Illinois collection. We are thrilled to be able to give them access to those materials again. And we are looking forward to the continued development of Palace Project for our K through 12 libraries. For the hundreds of public, academic, and special libraries that are already on the Palace Project, already have access to the app, we are continuing to actively solicit feedback on the user experience and share input with the Palace Project team to help guide future development, improvements, and enhancements. And I will say that the Palace Project and Lyrasis, the company that manages them, their focus is really on what they call library-driven development. And that means that they are incredibly transparent about the development work that they're doing. They have a public roadmap that anyone can access where they list the projects that they have on the roadmap, what they want to do, things that are currently being developed right now, and the things that were recently completed. And it's been really fun as we've administered this program over the last 2 months that we've worked with Palace to watch the things that we've asked them to do move from that to be developed to in progress to completed in some cases. And so they really are actively working on building the things that we're asking them to build. They also have a feedback board where they solicit suggestions for future development from libraries. And so you are invited to and encouraged to add projects to that feedback board. They also have a way for you to upvote the projects that somebody else has already added that you say, oh yeah, I really would like that too. You can upvote that, and they weigh the upvotes and the suggestions very heavily when they plan their future development. One thing that I want everyone to keep in mind with the eRead Illinois program is that we worked with Baker and Taylor, first with Access 360 and then Boundless. We had 12 years to really build solutions for our libraries, and specifically for our school libraries. The scoping, the content filtering, that was something that didn't exist for Access 360 or Boundless when we started the eRead Illinois program 12 years ago. Baker and Taylor built a solution for us. We also didn't onboard 552 libraries in one go with Baker and Taylor. We had 12 years to do that. And we were trying to do something similar in a fraction of the time with the Palace Project. But we are excited to do this development work, to build this program with the Palace Project. And we're excited not just to build not just an adequate solution, but really an optimal solution for sharing e-content across the state. And I do want to say too, our decision to go with the Palace Project, it was an intentional choice. It was based on the added value that the platform currently provides. And that includes the ability to aggregate other e-content collections into the app so that your users have kind of a one-stop shop for e-content in your library. They offer the ability to purchase more favorable licenses for e-content for libraries and exclusive content like Audible content. And then the app itself prioritizes content that's available. And so they're not just building up your holds list and having you spend more money on buying additional copies. They are showing your users things that are available to check out right now. So all of these things are, we think, really positive for the library e-content landscape, not just in Illinois, but at a national level. So as of right now, we are focused on getting those K through 12s launched. And once those libraries are settled, we're going to be turning our attention to onboarding non-eRead libraries to the Palace Project. I just want to remind everyone that the app will be available to any library in the state once we finish the eRead rollout, regardless of whether or not they are an eRead member. We will also welcome new eRead members if they want to join at the same time. But it's going to be, I think, a sort of a wonderful thing for the entire state.
So once again, I have questions.
Yes.
So apparently there was a Baker and Taylor solution for K-12. So they must have been accessing the eRead program, from what I heard you say. So I don't quite understand that it doesn't exist. I know Baker Taylor went out of business, but you helped build the system for K-12 with Baker and Taylor, if I'm understanding it correctly, although Emily's shaking her head no. But I just don't understand this because I'm not a librarian.
She wants to know what the unique properties of the Boundless app were that are not necessarily shared by others.
Well, when we partner with a vendor to develop something. We aren't doing the development. We are telling them what we need to them to develop for it to implement, and kind of working on gathering the information from our members and kind of providing all of those things so that they can develop the solution. And so we didn't, when you leave a vendor, you don't get that software, unfortunately. But that is what we are working with Palace to create on their software platform. So their software engineers are the ones who are developing it with input provided from our libraries.
But the scoping in particular was one of those elements. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about what that was and why that's unique.
Yeah, so scoping, the eRead Illinois collection it's over 80,000 items. We purchase items with all users in mind, every age from, birth, adult. And so there are going to be materials in the collection and it's a shared collection. Every library that subscribes shares the same collection. There are going to be materials in there that, an elementary school wouldn't want their students to access. And so what Baker and Taylor built for us was a way to filter that content out. And it was a really sophisticated way to filter that content out. So you could do it by the audience level assigned to the item. You could do it by the subject headings that were assigned to the item, by the author, or all the way down to the title level. And you could, exclude certain things and include others. And it was a really powerful tool and something that our schools really utilized and appreciated and felt was necessary. And that's something that only Baker and Taylor build. There is no other e-content provider that has anything that sophisticated. And so that is what Palace is working on building for this platform. And Baker and Taylor ain't going to share it.
There's no online share.
Taylor gave it to Palace. Like, here's that would be amazing. But yeah, they're
A little merger.
So when you say it doesn't exist, it's because it's a new provider and they are building it from scratch.
But other well-known providers also do not provide that level of scoping that is in existence. And that scoping helps to reflect the type of curation that actually happens in a physical school library. It's very different than a public library where you have large collections that include a variety of age groups. So it's why they're really in need of that kind of scoping material that a public library isn't in need of. So the other apps have not been developed with that same scoping in mind.
They have some scoping, but not to the level and complexity that Baker and Taylor offered.
I appreciate that. And please feel free to tell me to take this offline when I ask questions like that, because
it's a good question.
I'm not involved in library business every day, so.
And I truly think a lot of non-school library people don't understand that. I certainly didn't coming into Rails. Go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, they interrupted all. I understood this Palace platform was used throughout the state of California. Was it used in their school system? Their school libraries?
Publix. It's used in their Publix.
Yeah, just Publix. But I believe that the state of Georgia.
Only public libraries? Used?
Georgia has some schools, but it's a public K through 12. Yet there's not a lot of school involvement, and California was definitely was Publix. The part of our work with the Palace that is really, really great is that the things that we are developing here for our libraries and for Illinois will translate nationally. And they're very excited about some of the things that, we have just brought to the table, that this development has to happen now. For us to participate, has to be an immediate priority, which is what's happening. I wish immediate priority was like a week. Unfortunately, in development world, it isn't. And that is just how it is. But it's certainly of urgency, and it will kind of translate to some of these other programs that are already in place. They're very excited about it.
How many school libraries are members of eRead?
If you didn't hear that, it was 552. It was Megan.
Palace. I understand that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
If I might, I just want to comment just to thank again the team for what has gone into this process. I think you can hear from Joe and from Layla and from Anna, the type of work that has had to go in, both from soliciting feedback from our members for how we can make sure that we're meeting the needs that they have, but also in working directly with these development teams at Lyrasis and Palace, who have been great partners to us. But I think ultimately, once we get past this kind of initial stage, just as Anna and Layla have made very clear, this really is a really optimal solution for our state and for our libraries. And we're going to get to a place where we have something that I think we're really proud of. So we want to thank our members and appreciate their patience, no matter what library type that they're in, as they participate with us. I know I personally have been using the Palace app for some of my audiobook reading. I encourage you, if you're in a library that is part of eRead, to take a look at it. My hold times are very low right now. So if you want to take a look at some new material, it's a great time to do it. And if you have feedback to share with us, please do.
I have one more question, then I promise I'll be quiet for a while. We all got a letter from a public library, as I recall, and Joe responded to it, but I don't know where we are on that, the concerns that were voiced by that person.
Want to speak to that, Joe?
Well, yes, and thank you, Rob. So that was that email communication that went to board members. This was back before holidays, really. We actually just had the opportunity, myself, Layla, Anna, to meet with that team who expressed some concerns and wanted to give an opportunity for their feedback. So literally just met with them yesterday to talk through those concerns, learned a few things, and we'll be able to circle back. So just so the board knows, there's been follow-up and conversation with those librarians, with our members.
And just for clarity, that was not a public library. It was a community college library. That was a lot of their concerns were based around this K-12 issue that Anna and Layla had been highlighting.
Sorry, I misremembered.
No, not at all.
My only comment was going to be, I remember switching from Boundless, from Access 360 to Boundless, and people complained. So whenever there's something new, there's bugs to be worked out, and and so the compressed time frame, the email came through, and I think all of us as a board, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, think you guys were doing like the absolute right thing under extreme pressure, and have done it so well. So yeah,
I like it. I've been checking things out on it. I like the interface. The one thing I will say is the font size confuses me. It goes from very small to like, there's no in between. I don't know why. It's just slightly small and then too big. So that's my only complaint.
There's something like that on the audio too, when you're listening. And so I asked them, is that like a big tweak to add another lever in there, another point in there? And they said, when we're looking at development, no, that wouldn't be, but do we want to just make it so it's a slider and finite? And that's a better solution. And so then it, moves a little farther down on the development piece. But yeah, and we love to hear those things, and they have a support thing. And really, I mean, they're not going to get addressed in the next 2 months. I can tell you that, but they will be on a list. And I think, we will be looking at those things just to enhance the basic experience. But I'm glad you're enjoying books on it. And we are too over here. So.
I mean, I like the interface of it better than Boundless. It's a lot smoother and cleaner when you're turning pages and things like that. So,
That's great.
All right, any other comments or questions? Well, thank you, Joe and Layla and Anna, for sharing about all that news. Monica will now talk about the 2027 to 2029 Rail Strategic Plan.
Thank you, Gwen. So you had a piece in your packet that kind of went through some of the information that we wanted to share about a strategic plan. You may recall that in our budget request that we made for fiscal year 26, we did want to include some money potentially for a consultant as we explored what that might look like for us. So I want to just give me just one moment. Pull up our meeting here, but we do have just some details about what we are proposing for how we would move through our strategic plan for this coming year. I did want to give you a little bit of historical information just in case you're not aware of how the strategic plan has worked at points in the past here at Rails. So the first Rails strategic plan was developed in 2014. That was with support from Nancy Bolt and Associates, a consultant that was hired at that time. Because Rails was the result of a merger, it was the very first strategic plan that Rails had. And it was developed with a sort of 3 to 5 year runway, just sort of dependent on what it was that they were interested in moving forward at that point. Then the Rails team decided to revamp or refresh the plan internally, and that plan went from 2018 to 2022. The team internally updated the plan by keeping the goals intact, but updating it with new objectives based on feedback that they then received from the membership. Then in 2022, we went back to hiring a consultant. This time we hired Constructive Disruption with Stephanie Chase and Cindy Fessemeyer to work with us on developing a totally new plan. I had the opportunity to be part of Rails at that time and to work on the development of that plan with then Executive Director Deirdre Brennan. And we did include updated mission and vision statements at that time in addition to the new plan, which I know you all are familiar with. Everything at Rails flows from the strategic plan, so every Rails report you receive includes the strategic plan goals as well as updates that are coming from there. The annual report that we submit to the state library at the end of the year is all organized by the strategic plan goals and objectives and shows the progress that we have made each year annually. So what we are proposing to do for our next year for 2027 through 2029 is a hybrid approach and kind of looking back historically at what we have done. Our thought is that we will work with one of the consultants that we worked with on our last process. That's Cindy Fessemeyer, who now has her own consulting firm and she is based here in Wisconsin. She also worked recently on the ILA strategic plan in addition to some other Illinois strategic plans to do a refresh, which would include our comprehensive goals that are included in the 2022 to 2025 plan, but to work on soliciting a lot of feedback from our membership so that we can update those objectives and goals. So this is sort of a hybrid approach of what we did the last time we refreshed our first plan. But I want to share with you some kind of opportunity what that timeline might look like in the coming year. Our goal is always to develop a plan that is very grounded in reality, that includes the types of goals that are clear and that our membership can understand, but also that it's reflective of board member and staff input and that it's future focused. I think, at least for me personally, and in some of the conversations I've had with other library leaders, this seems like a very difficult time to develop a strategic plan because the world seems very uncertain and even the urgency and needs that our libraries has seems to change month by month. But I think that that is often a very interesting time to develop a strategic plan because getting to hear directly from our members about their concerns, their dreams, their hopes for what the system can provide, I think we're going to get some really interesting feedback. So even though it seems to be kind of an awkward time to be soliciting some of this, I'm really hopeful about where we can go. I do also want to point out that this 2027 to 2029 process, one of the reasons we think it's important to work with a consultant is this is our first plan with new Rails organizational leadership in place since our other plans were there. So, Joe is in his position as Associate Executive Director. I've been in my position for about 3 years as Executive Director. Dan is relatively new to his position in the last 3 years as the Marketing and Communications Director, which is, of course, a very important position to developing a strategic plan as well. So I think it will be helpful for us to also have some outside input, especially as we're conducting some of the types of focus groups and interviews, to have someone who's in a more neutral position asking some of these questions. I think we'll get more honest answers. We do also want to include an update of our vision statement in this process. I think we love our mission statement, which is we connect libraries. I think it's very clear clear. I think our members understand it. Our staff certainly has it memorized and understands it. But I think our vision statement, which is really about what an ideal future world that Rails is in looks like, could use a little work. And I think the opportunity to re-look at that with a new group is a really good idea. So that's something we'd like to propose as well. So I want to tell you a little bit about the timeline of what we're looking for before we would come up in 2027, because a lot of it involves you all and the feedback that you will have. So I just wanted the opportunity to share some of that with you. So kind of our first step in this process would be to engage a steering committee. And what that steering committee looks like, it's about 12 people. Cindy kind of feels that a smaller group works better, and I tend to agree. It would include 2 board members, 4 Rails staff members, and then 6 members from our membership that would represent our different library types, as well as a geography that is sort of across the service area that we have. That group would be determined, and we would have our first meeting as soon as February 2026. This would happen relatively soon. Then we would develop and release member and staff surveys also in this early spring. So our development would begin as soon as February, and that we would have the survey out and returned by April 2026, so that we had some feedback to start with when we were getting started on our process. Also in that February to April time period, our consultant would begin interviews, and she would do 2 different things. One is for focus groups. So it would be 6 different focus groups. Again, they would focus on different library types as well as different library size and geography. Each one would be virtual and have about 12 to 15 people in it. They're about an hour long. She would ask targeted questions and then pull back the feedback that is received from that. She can also hold up to 12 stakeholder interviews, which is essentially one-on-one interviews that she would have with the leadership of our partners. So one thing that's very important in our current strategic plan goals is about partnership throughout Illinois and how we work with the other agencies that support libraries in our state. So she would facilitate those interviews that happen one-on-one with those folks, and that we would get their feedback that she would synthesize with us and share. From there, from all of those survey results and those focus group and kind of interview results, we would have what's called a member assessment report. So that report would be ready in May 2026. And then we would begin having a longer form workshop, one with our staff executive team. So that's our leadership that meets weekly here at Rails and provides a lot of the leadership that you see here. And then one with our board in June 2026. So that would include a 3-hour workshop with all of you. It would be in person. It would be in addition to the board meeting that we have, and it would be focused on the report information that we have, and then really beginning to work with you on your priorities and how you feel we should move forward in terms of strategic planning goals. Then a draft outline would be available by August 2026, and we would begin virtual sessions with both the memberships at large. So that's like in our sort of member update kind of a format where all members could come and hear that kind of draft outline. We'd have another staff virtual session so that our staff could hear and provide feedback to a draft outline. And then it would be presented to a draft plan would be presented to the Rails board in October, and an evaluation and metrics plan would be developed in November. So something new that we want to add this year is, in addition to the goals and objectives, we'd like to add some level of formalized evaluation that would be in cooperation with our data team. So we would develop some metrics that we could measure as we go throughout this process, not dissimilar from what we talk about as SMART goals in some of these cases, so that we could come up with more concrete goals that we're measuring in addition to the type of narrative information that we share with you all. So that's kind of the loose, structure of what we are looking at, but there are some kind of immediate steps that we will be looking at as we move forward. This is a busy year, but I think that this process is really important, and it's one that we want to begin. And since it's almost a year-long process, we wanted the opportunity to share this with you. I know many of you have participated in your own strategic planning processes. And so if you have feedback on either things that have worked really well for you or things you would like to see in our plan that might be incorporated, I would love for the opportunity to hear from you. Are there any thoughts? Yes, Karen.
You were speaking like, you're going to do this and this and this. Is this with Cindy's input? Do we have to approve hiring Cindy?
There is not approval necessary because it is an operational decision and it's already been included in the budget. So
Been hired, I guess is my question.
we don't have a contract with Cindy, but we are working with Cindy and letting her know that this is the direction that we would like to move. It's certainly what I would recommend to the board in terms of how we would like to proceed.
Because if you already came up with all these steps, you know, we're gonna do this, and then why do you need Cindy? You know what I'm saying?
Cindy
And
helped
I thought you've already.
steps. These are also Cindy steps, and we did work with her in the past
Yeah.
on these processes. So this is the direction we would like to go that we have identified as what we think is the best move forward. And it does not require approval from the board, but I'm certainly interested in feedback.
I just was confused whether she was hired or not.
Got it. Yeah.
I think it's really nice to have a third party when you're strategic planning. Because people are just more honest with someone who's doesn't have a foot in the game or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's been my experience as well, as I think that membership and particularly partners are going to feel much more comfortable providing honest feedback if it's someone from outside the organization than if they're telling us directly.
Survey questions are a lot more difficult to draft than.
We are fortunate to have a team in our data team that is very strong at the development of those survey questions. And so that is something that I feel very confident that we can work on in-house in terms of our own work. I think the facilitation and the development of the plan, the presentation of the plan, that's the pieces that I think are going to be the most useful for us.
Any other questions or comments right now?
I think this is something that you will hear about almost monthly from us, either in the Rails report or as items on our agenda. So you can expect to get very regular updates on this. As I said, we'll also have 2 members of the Rails board serving on the steering committee, so they can also provide feedback on the board. And as soon as we have those set, we will share that with you as well, so you know who to communicate with as we're moving forward.
I'm sure if people have questions or anything, they can communicate with you. Great.
Always.
I have one question about the current strategic plan. Will there be an opportunity to hear from the Rails team what your experience has been in working through the current strategic plan? So in case there's goals that are similar or the approach is similar, if there was something that you feel is particularly challenging or difficult with the current plan, or goals that have been kind of too vague, where we could get feedback since you've been living with it for a handful of years.
Maybe what we could do is include questions in a staff survey that speak to some of that, so that we can get some reporting on that, so that in addition to their kind of future focused questions, they could respond to the last strategic plan in terms of what they either didn't like about the process or learned about it. Would that kind of fit your?
I think so, because I mean, the strategic plan is very ambitious, and clearly you work so wonderfully on it, but we don't really ever get to hear about what your experience is in living with the plan day to day. So if there was anything that could help to inform the next one, so that we don't maybe build in the same challenges or create the same potential sufferings that, you know, your team may have, it would be, I just think, very enlightening.
I think it's a good idea, Catherine. I thought I heard a question on Zoom. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, how are the board members on the strategic planning committee selected?
I have been in contact with Gwen about that. In the sort of initial thought is to have the board president and vice president involved in the process, just because of the break in the fiscal year because we're going kind of halfway through, having leadership and perhaps backup leadership involved might be the best process, but that's where we're at right now.
All right, well, thank you, Monica. Next is Joe and the MOU for the RSA vehicle transition.
So now another reminder, I'll take you back to November's board meeting when we were in Galesburg. We presented an intergovernmental agreement that formalize the employee transition of RSA staff as part of their independence project. So that work, of course, continued following that meeting, and that major milestone of transitioning staff to direct employment by RSA took place at the beginning of January. Again, just want to commend RSA staff for their diligence during this project. I want to also call out the work of our own HR department, and in particular, Sam Daly, who worked through things like separation checklists and final exit interviews with RSA staff and the various inquiries regarding benefits and balance information. A lot of moving parts from HR perspective. Also want to acknowledge the work of our IT department, who has been continues to provide a great deal of support and assistance to RSA as they work on sort of the final milestone of their transition of this independence project, which is the full IT transition piece that is expected to be completed by the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. But as a supplemental component of this transition, we're presenting an MOU to the board today, which you can find in your packet, that recommends a transfer of ownership of 2 passenger vehicles that are currently located at our East Peoria office from Rails to RSA. Because RSA represents an intergovernmental collection of tax-supported libraries, it is allowable for us to transfer these vehicles and not go through the public sale process as outlined by the Library System Act. But there, of course, should be at least a determination reached that the vehicles are no longer necessary for us. To give just a bit more background, these vehicles specifically are 2 2014 Ford Fusions, 80 to 90,000 miles on each of those vehicles. These vehicles were purchased for the purpose of RSA staff travel and their visits to their member libraries, to conduct training and just other kind of relevant RSA business and to support, obviously, their operations. Operationally, Rails, we do not feel we have a need for these vehicles. We currently have a total of 5 vehicles here in Burr Ridge that I think very adequately meet the travel needs for our staff here out of our Burr Ridge facility. I also want to note that there is a bit of precedence here. Rails took a similar action several years ago with Prairie Cat as we also transferred ownership of a Rails vehicle with similar rationale that the original purchase of the vehicle was for the purpose of supporting Prairie Cat's operational needs. So again, there's kind of some precedence that I think is relevant. The MOU that you see, of course, has been reviewed by our attorney and addresses basically 2 things: the transfer of those 2 vehicles. And then at RSA's request, there's just a simple acknowledgement of notification should either party look to relocate from the East Peoria facility, either party being Rails or RSA. There already is some language that's included in the LSAP support agreement that speaks to this, but it's just really kind of just further confirmation of those expectations around notification. But the main component of this MOU really is the transfer of those 2 vehicles. And just to summarize, a recommendation for the board is to transfer these vehicles based on a combination of the precedents from Prairie Cat's transition, the assessment that these vehicles don't hold an operational need for Rails, and an understanding that the original intent of these vehicles from the beginning were for the use of RSA staff. So that is what we are presenting here today. Happy to take any questions or any comments.
Did you have a lawyer review it?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
If it's a binding agreement.
Yeah,
right?
and
Sure.
it's, yep.
Any other questions? Okay, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the memorandum of understanding for the RSA vehicle transition?
Megan?
Ron?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The last item in new business is Jessica Silva to present 2 new membership applications.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. We have 2 requests for membership today. The first one is Lake Forest Academy, which is in Lake Forest, Illinois. They serve 452 students, and about half of the students live on campus because it is a boarding school. And all the freshman students take a digital media literacy class with the librarians, Ashley Kolovitz and Rita McHale. Lake Forest learned about Rails membership because Ashley actually presented at the School Library Workers Symposium about AI for librarians. And they're really excited about joining Rails, about the database discounts, and they also belong to an independent schools network. So I'm hopeful they're able to help us connect to maybe some other independent schools who are not members yet. And it's also the school from the Rebecca Mackay I Have Some Questions for You book, in case anyone's interested. And the other member is Washington Central District 51. And they are in Washington, Illinois. They serve 1,250 students, but they have a K through 4 and a 5 through 8. Katie Mann is the K through 4 librarian, and Sarah Hefta is the 5 through 8 librarian. They learned about Rails membership through our presence, the partnership presence at the IASB conference. So they're really excited about the grant and potentially joining an e-read platform as well as professional development opportunities. I think they would each make great Rails members. Do you have any questions for me?
All right, if there's no further questions, may I have a motion and a second to approve the membership of Lake Forest Academy and Washington Central School District 51 and to submit it to the State Library for final approval?
Move to approve.
Karen.
Is there a second?
Rob.
Okay, great. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Well, thank you, Jessica. And next on the agenda is guest Heather Kotula, who will give the board development report on special libraries. But first, we'll hear from Dan Bostrom, who will introduce Heather.
Hi, thanks, y'all. I suggested Heather, so I asked to introduce her. So Heather Kotula is the president and CEO of Access Innovations Incorporated. Heather has been active in taxonomy works, including creating, implementing, and oversight of several taxonomies, including medical databases in the original AOL taxonomy, supporting their search for many years. She set up Heather is a big fan of the Z39.19 vocabulary standard and fascinated by artificial intelligence systems. She set up and ran the Missoula, Montana office for Access Innovations, specifically for work on the AOL search database and taxonomy. She is active on the professional side of the industry, having served many positions within the Special Libraries Association, where she is currently on the board of directors and is the current president, 2026, of SLA, however long that exists, and the Society for Scholarly Publishing, SSP, serving on the marketing committee. She is known for her creative presentations and publications at professional societies. She edited the Taxo book, written by Marjorie M.K. Halva. It is a 3-volume book set from Morgan and Claypool, used in library and information science schools throughout the world. Heather's also a friend and a colleague and someone I very much consider to be a mentor. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, and thanks for inviting. I'm getting a echo.
You're coming in okay from here.
Okay. Thanks for inviting me to present. It's been interesting and fun to watch how another board operates. And the first question I'm going to address is SLA, the Special Libraries Association. Yeah, we're going out of business, just like Baker and Taylor. We are merging with ASIS, the Association for Information Science and Technology, which is very much has a very academic slant in terms of library and information science. And they are hoping that we will bring the special librarian practical application side of things to them. And I often get asked, well, what makes a library or a librarian special? And while I think all libraries are very, very special and important, I generally say that if it's not a K through 12 or a public library, it's probably a special library. And I was looking at the member list for Rails, and number 2, AbbVie, is a member, and they're special. They're a pharmaceutical company, but they have a library. Any organization that does a lot of research and development is going to have a library of those reports and stuff like that. One of our clients a long time ago was Kimberly-Clark, which you're probably familiar with. They might manufacture your Kleenex, your toilet paper, your diapers, your toothpaste. And they had a huge library that we digitized and tagged for them so that their researchers could look it up online. This was back in the 1990s. And we have what some of my colleagues think of as sexy librarians, like the one at the Grateful Dead Library. Nike, Caterpillar, Rolls-Royce, etc. So that's kind of my short summary of what a special librarian is. And within SLA, that is now ASIST, we have something exciting coming up. I'm happy to say that in June, one of the things on ASIST strategic plan for, I think, the last 15 years has been to have a conference that is more about the application of library and information science rather than the sort of doctoral forum that the ASIST meeting has become. And with the merger, our June conference timeframe fit perfectly for them and is basically a ready-made platform for this item they've had on their strategic plan for a long time. And I'm thrilled to say that it's going to be here in Albuquerque, which is my hometown, June 6th through 9th. So check it out if you're interested in coming. It's a great venue. ASIST also has chapters and SIGs, special interest groups, who are very active. It seems like there's at least one webinar happening every single day around what's going on in the various SIGs, information needs and use, artificial intelligence, scientific and technical information, and they're all really good. And the ASIST annual conference will be next October in Bangkok. So there's just really a lot going on there. Dan also asked me to talk about how people outside of special libraries can support the profession. And I think it's the same for really any library. Advocate, use the library. It's there for you to use. Whether you're a researcher at AbbVie or you're going to your public library, just be, spreading awareness and saying, hey, these are the great things the library is doing. I loved hearing about your ebook platform that you're launching. I think that's great. You'll really expand reach, I think, with that. And I'm going to kind of stop there. I would rather have sort of a conversation or a Q&A session rather than just talk at you for a long time.
Heather, this is Monica Harris. I'm the executive director here at Rails. I'm wondering Hi, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm wondering what you think the types of support that special librarians most need from something like a regional library system. I know we've been talking a lot about how different all of the special libraries we serve are. And so it'd just be really interesting to hear from your perspective what you're looking for when you're looking to be involved in another organization.
Yeah. It's hard. It's what we all need, right? We all need to be recognized that we exist and we have a purpose, and it's a good purpose. Support funding. A lot of special libraries are corporations like AbbVie, and have a little more stable funding than some of our public and school libraries do. And just hey, I got this at the library. And also, pointing out that libraries are more than just books. A lot more than just books. There are libraries out there that are don't have any books. They're all digital, or they're a library of things, right? You can go check out, cake pans for baking or whatever. There's a story that I love about a woman who was living out of her car. And this is a public library, of course, but she would go to the public library and apply for jobs. Library staff got together when she had an interview and loaned her clothes so that she would look the part. And she ended up getting the job. And, it's a great use example of why support a library, any library. It probably doesn't help a whole lot, does it?
It's just interesting to hear your perspective. I will say that it's such a challenge. We talked about this in the advocacy committee meeting about what a challenge it is for folks in special libraries, especially who are solo librarians. Heather was talking about a colleague who works in the Rolls-Royce library, and that's a very unique library. And actually something that you maybe didn't know about Rolls-Royce is they also develop a lot of plane engines, a lot of engines for planes. So one of the things that she did is she acquired all of these parts, parts for plane engines, and she had almost like she had like a museum display where people could come and play around with the parts and see them. And that was a way for her to become visual within the organization. People knew of her presence. And that is sort of one of the tactics people have to do. So when they're looking for support, sometimes you have to be really creative and innovative in the way that you invite people into your library.
Yeah. One of the characteristics of libraries that special librarians is they're very creative. Really resourceful, willing to try out daring things.
This is Robin from the Peoria Public Library, and Caterpillar used to be headquartered here till they bolted to Texas. But I believe their library is still here, and they serve as the historical perspective of the company. And they have made that those items available sometimes to the Historical Society, sometimes other groups in Peoria. So we have some connection, although they took their headquarters out of town, so I don't like them.
Perfectly fair.
And I was head of the Chamber of Commerce when they did it.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Sunny Sun, I think, is their librarian, or was. Another interesting thing. Go ahead if there's a question.
I was going to ask you a little bit about your business, Access Innovations, and how you see AI impacting the field of librarianship.
Sure. And for some history, during the 1980s, we did a lot of library card catalog conversions, digitization. And I kind of, in listening to the conversations today, I feel like we've maybe kind of come almost full circle. Ingram Library Services is one of our current clients, and we are in phase 1 of developing a system to automatically generate MARC records for them. Thank you, Jennifer, for the applause.
My staff
yes.
will do cartwheels, so thank you. We are so looking forward to that.
Yeah. So I think they're going to be launching phase 1 next week. No, first week in February. Sorry. Yeah. So, and we're applying a lot of AI techniques to that. That said, I don't always fully trust AI to be 100% accurate. So there's still a lot of human in the loop for what we're doing. We also do a lot of work for publishers, society and association publishers, mostly STEM, and we do that with an AI system to automatically tag. So we're populating the contributed metadata field. We're doing conceptual metadata, not the structural metadata, but that is largely AI based. We set up and train a system, and when we get to 98% accuracy or above, we let it run automatically. So does that answer your question? I wasn't planning to do a sales pitch, honest.
Yeah, I wasn't really asking for a sales pitch. I was, looking for examples of how it was going to impact our jobs. And so you just gave a few examples. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're searching a database of journal articles, if you find the stuff that's relevant, great, we're doing our job. If you don't, tell us or tell that publisher to come to us and we can help them. We're looking for a keynote speaker for the conference that's in Albuquerque in June. And we're trying to look locally. And my husband works at Sandia National Labs. I noticed that Argonne National Laboratory is also a Rails member. So there's some similarities there. And my husband sent me an article about somebody who created a new knowledge management center at Sandia. And it was just this groundbreaking, wonderful thing. And my first thought was, if they hadn't closed all their libraries 20 years ago, they wouldn't have had to reinvent that wheel. But here we are.
Well, I'd just like to point out, because probably, I don't know if anyone else here remembers this, that there was a librarian from Caterpillar in Peoria that was on the Rails board, and she was the president of the Rails board a few years ago.
And we're fortunate to have two special librarians on our board right now.
We actually had a board meeting at Caterpillar once.
Yeah.
Nice.
And actually, this is kind of random, but my father worked at Sandia National Labs for
wow.
years.
Small world.
Yes, it is. Any other questions for Heather?
Anything you're curious about?
Thank you, Heather.
None? Yes, I hope you are all able to stay warm and safe during the Snowmageddon that's coming. And thank you again. And feel free to reach out if you think of something later.
Thank you so much for being here, Heather.
Thank you,
All right.
Heather.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, now is the opportunity for board members to share news from their library or area.
I actually have some news. Sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Emily.
Just very quickly, I'm excited to let everybody know that we hired my coworker's replacement, so now I don't have to work 2 jobs. So I'm going to be back at the hospital full time instead of bouncing between the college and the hospital. So,
Any other news? All right, thank you, Emily, for that. So the next meeting will be held on Friday, February 27th at 1 p.m. The agenda for the February meeting will include the Rails investment portfolio review. The service of the month will be Find More Illinois, and the board development topic will be library advocacy at the state and national levels with guest Amelia Aldred. The board
I
will
actually
now
have a
move.
question about next meeting. I'm not
Go
going
ahead,
to be
Emily.
back.
Oh,
Are you coming back like that day?
I will be here, but it's understandable, Emily, that you might not be.
Sorry, that stinks.
Oh, no worries.
I can.
So the ALA legislative fly-in ends the Thursday before. So Emily will still be in DC at our next meeting, but I will be back. So we'll be here for the meeting.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So the board will now move into closed session to discuss matters pertaining to the following as per 5 Illinois compiled statutes, chapter 120, paragraph 2, section 2C21, to discuss the matters listed below. Exceptions: a public body may hold closed meetings to consider the following subjects. 21, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under this act, whether for purposes of approval of by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06. May I have a motion and a second to move into closed session?
So moved, Jean.
Second, Catherine.
Thank you. Stacy, will you please call roll?
Jean Carroll? Yes. Jennifer Kutchel?
Yes.
Megan Gove?
Yes.
Gwen Gregory?
Yes.
Ron Hallahan?
Yes.
Jennifer Hovanek?
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski?
Yes.
Rob Parks?
Yes.
Emily Porter? Carolyn Sennett?
Yes.
Alex Fancina?
Yes.
Karen Wojcik?
Yes.
Catherine Namakatsky?
Yes.
We are now back in open session with the recording and the live streaming on. Agenda item number 14.1 is the action on the 6-month review of the Rails Board closed session minutes and the closed session recordings. May I have a motion and a second to open the closed session minutes from August 25th, 2023, January 26th, 2024, March 22nd, 2024, February 28th, 2025, June 20th, 2026, and July 25th, 2025.
That was June 20th, 2025.
Oh, sorry.
2026, I apologize.
So moved.
Randomly reading.
Catherine moves. Second, Amanda.
Stacy, would you please call roll?
Jean Carroll? Yes. Jennifer Kutchel?
Yes.
Megan Gove?
Yes.
Gwen Gregory?
Yes.
Ron Hallahan?
Yes.
Jennifer Hovanek?
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski?
Yes.
Rob Parks?
Yes.
Emily Porter?
Yes.
Carolyn Sennett?
Yes.
Alex Fancina?
Yes.
Karen Wojcik?
Yes.
Catherine Namakatsky?
Yes.
We will now proceed with the action on the closed session recordings.
Tell me you're not going to read every single date on those recordings. Do you have to?
No. May I have a motion and a second to dispose of all closed session recordings from May 23rd, 2014 through May 24th, 2024?
So moved.
Would like the second.
Second, Alex.
Stacy, will you please call roll?
Jean Carroll? Yes. Jennifer Kutchel?
Yes.
Megan Gove?
Yes.
Gwen Gregory?
Yes.
Ron Hallahan?
Yes.
Jennifer Hovanek?
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski?
Yes.
Rob Parks?
Yes.
Emily Porter? Carolyn Sennett?
Yes.
Alex Fancina?
Yes.
Karen Boytek,
Yes.
Catherine Anacostia.
Yes.
Thank you, Stacy, for great work organizing all that. And thanks everyone for paying attention. With no further business to discuss, thank you for your attendance. And I adjourn this meeting at 3:52 p.m. And I hope everyone has a nice weekend and stays warm.